Hello, good morning YouTube. This is my video response to Tim Tank's question of the pile foundation, and they're too short or don't look very long. So I'll tell you what they are. They are 3 meter long piles, that's 3,000 millimeters. And what you're seeing above the ground is only the top bit, the bit that's sticking out the ground. It's the height that I put them at. The way they're calculated is it's done at architectural level. Basically, they work out the weight on the pile of the house, the snow load, there's the frost level in the region, all these kind of questions that architects deal with, kind of dark art stuff, you know. I'm not an engineer. I work on piles, you know that. Well, you may know that. I put foundations in. That's my job here in Russia. Done a lot of them, done it for a long time. So I understand the ground. What I knew, and this is what I was saying about asking locals. If you see some of my earlier videos about asking locals about local knowledge, local knowledge is absolutely terrific. It gets around a lot of problems. And so my local knowledge came from my neighbour, and he told me that exactly 100 meters from my land is a pond. Now, that pond is only 2 meters deep. And I said, well, how did that come about? You know. And he said, well, what happened was there was a pottery works not too far from there. And they dug that pond out, and there's a whole lot of series of ponds around there to get the clay for the pottery works, and it's 2 meters deep. Now, I've got a theodolite, and I measured in Russian nivelier, and I measured the distance, roughly the depth difference between my land and the top of that pond, roughly. And it's about a meter. I'm about a meter higher than that pond, and the pond is 2 meters. That gives me a depth of 3 meters of pure clay. So I knew I only need 2 meters of pile to go into there. That's it. So that's basically how I come up with the conclusion. I only needed 2 meter piles. I know if I'm working on clay anyway in any region in Leningrad Oblast, if it's clay, we don't go any deeper than 2 meters. It's just not necessary. In Velika Novgorod or Staraya Russa, where I am, again, it's the same thing. The frost depth is only less than, it's actually goes down to about 600 millimeters, 600. I mean, I've worked here in severe cold at minus 18, minus 20, which is cold for that kind of work. We've never had it more than 600 millimeters. Piles coming up out of the ground, it's a possibility, but only if they're put in very shallow. It doesn't happen very often, not with this type of pile. If you get the other type, the screw piles, the железный beton, they most definitely can come out of the ground, and they wobble about as well, so not recommended. But that's how I came up. I knew the ground was at least 3 meters of clay, and I knew the frost level was less than 600 millimeters. So I know the piles are perfectly safe. And this will be the second year that the piles are in the ground. So far they haven't moved, and I doubt that they ever will move. But it's a real consideration for your architect about the type of building you're doing. You know, if it's me, it's only a single story frame house. There's not a lot of weight going on those piles. But again, done at architecture level, they work out the spacing of the piles between the beams and all the rest of it. You know, it's technical stuff that I'm not an engineer. I'm not a house designer. I put pile foundations according to a plan. And on this case, local knowledge, I knew how deep the clay was. But yeah, that's basically how it comes about, if that makes any sense at all. But actually, those piles are actually at least 2 meters each. I think there's one pile I did, we hit some stone, and it's about 190 below the ground. But generally, they are all over either 2 meters or slightly more than 2 meters. Some are 220. And we cut them at 60. I cut them at 60 centimeters high. And on piles, if you didn't know, on piles there is the top piece of the pile, the first sort of 10 centimeters has extra armor in, and it's for the beating of the hammer. It smashes the concrete, and so it's extra reinforcement in there. So you always cut that bit off, unless somebody's actually asking to put the piles into the top of the pile. I mean, but generally, no. you cut the top of the pile off because it gets what they call micro tracing in the concrete, and basically when you drill them to put the cap on, they just kind of disintegrate. So we don't do that unless it's a very special case or it's very soft ground or something. But generally we cut the top off a bit. But they're in 2 meters anyway. That's the long and tall of it. So hope that's a comprehensive reply, if not a bit of waffle. I'll see you in my next video.